Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce the official party for today's ceremony and our distinguished guests. Please hold your applause until everyone has been introduced. Deputy Joint Base Commander and Commander 27th Air Base Group, Colonel Christopher Hall. Joint Base Senior Enlisted Advisor and Superintendent 27th Air Base Group, Chief Master Sergeant Christopher Clark. We would also like to welcome commanders, chiefs, sergeant majors, first sergeants, and other distinguished guests. We extend a special welcome and appreciation to all of you gathered here this morning to remember America's prisoners of war and those missing in action. We would like to thank and acknowledge the time given by the following ceremony participants: the Prisoners of War and Missing in Action Remembrance Committee, volunteers from Air Force Sergeants Association, Chapter 1461, our official party, and all that have contributed to this significant occasion. We also want to give special thanks to our community partners whose generous support made these events possible. At this time, we invite Colonel Hall to come say a few words.
All right, so good morning, ladies and gentlemen. He did say I need to come up here and just say a few words, so I'll try to keep it as brief as I possibly can. However, this is a really good event for us to take a moment to remember those that were prisoners of war or those that are still missing in action. I'd just like to thank Mr. Tobin. Thank you for being here for the wing, to Chaplain Von Allman. Thank you for being here as well. The Honor Guard, I think I lost them, but thank you all for being here. And Aaron Meyer, thank you. Great job on the national anthem. I'd like to thank all of the organizers that are here today for this week's event. Thank you all for contributing to this event and taking your times and talents and your energies to make this year's POW and MIA Remembrance a praiseworthy endeavor. An unfortunate but inescapable aspect of human nature is the ever-existing threat of war. Fortunately, there are those who volunteer to fight our country, for our country, and our way of life in times of conflict. Tragically, some of those brave men and women are required to pay the ultimate price. Since 1941, approximately 500,000 Americans have lost their lives in our nation's defense. To honor their sacrifice, we hold funerals, funeral honors, we memorialize them in movies and monuments, and celebrate them on holidays. We keep their stories alive. To the majority of our fallen are accounted for, having received tragic but honorable burials, being laid to rest in peace either at home or in hallowed grounds overseas. The names of those heroes are etched into our nation's memory forever. And their families, though sorely aggrieved, are comforted by the knowledge that their loved one's battle is over. Their sacrifice is complete. POW and MIA Remembrance is somewhat different in that regard because it recognizes a different kind of sacrifice, one that is still ongoing. Among our nation's killed in action, 81,000, roughly 15%, are still missing in action today. For these 81,000, there are no serene burials, no divide between war and peace. Those men and women, their fates uncertain, their whereabouts unknown, and their families whose loving concerns was never quenched by a definitive account of their loved one's last moment. Those are the ones we honor today. Although we have thus far been unable to bring them all home, we continue to search with never-ending dedication. Some may ask questions like, why must we keep looking for those that are lost? why should we keep looking to recover our missing dead? Isn't it the occasional memorial inscribed with their names an adequate token of gratitude? In response to those questions, I would ask that each of you consider this. Just 3 years ago, in October of 2019, a Vietnam veteran named Warren Robinson Jr. was set to be buried not too far from here, at the Tahoma National Cemetery. Tragically, at the time of his passing, Warren had no friends and family remaining. He died alone. But when word circulated that a veteran of this country was going to be buried alone, something amazing happened. Thousands of his fellow Americans, to include several hundred soldiers and airmen from this installation, showed up at the funeral. Why did they show up? They did it because, as Americans and service members, we don't leave our warriors behind. Not at home, not on the battlefield. We continue to search for our missing in action because, while many paid the high price of death for our country, our missing warriors stand ready to pay an even higher price. If we are not careful, they stand to be forgotten. So against all odds, we continue to search. No one gets left behind. No one gets forgotten. You may have noted today that we don't have any of our honored POWs in attendance today. It has been nearly 50 years since American POWs were kept captive in large numbers, often under conditions of starvation, disgrace, torture. Our Vietnam War POW survivors are slowly but steadily moving on, which only magnifies our duty to remember them actively. Although my words could never breach the debt of that gratitude, they are owed, I speak for us all when I say thank you. To our POW survivors and their families, thank you for bearing the burden for which you are charged. We and our posterity, thank you for your sacrifice. Without a doubt, many of us have reflected on the sacrifices made by our POWs and MIAs over this past week. But as we leave this day's remembrance, let us think of them not only in times of remembrance, but let us remember them as we go out about our daily ups and downs, which often pales in comparison to the brand of hardship our POWs and MIAs had to bear. May we remember them, as so well said by John Stuart Mill, war is an ugly thing, but the disregarded state of moral and patriotic feeling, which thinks that nothing is worth war, is much worse. Our POWs and missing in action believed in the ideals and freedoms of our nation so much so that each of them were willing to give the ultimate sacrifice to secure our republic. Let us look to their example for strength as we carry forward the standards of liberty and the performance of our military duties, as well as our daily lives. Thank you.
We are here to honor former prisoners of war, members missing in action, and their families. Please join me as we take a moment of silence to honor their service and sacrifices made for a grateful nation. The wreath will be placed by Colonel Hall and Chief Master Sergeant Clark. Please come forward at this time. This wreath is laid in memory and honor of all prisoners of war and men and women who remain missing in action. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our wreath-laying ceremony. Thank you for braving the weather, for your continuing support and dedication to ensuring prisoners of war and those missing in action are never forgotten. The Air Force Sergeants Association, Chapter 1461, would also like to thank you for attending, and have a great day.